Selfish dad gave my daughter a stick for her birthday and said, "Expensive gifts are only for other grandkids." Everyone laughed, but 30 minutes later there was silence when I always knew my father was selfish, but this was something else. Amanda had been looking forward to her 10th birthday for months. She had a list of things she dreamed of: getting a bike, some art supplies, maybe even a new dollhouse. Emily and I planned a big party, inviting family and close friends. The decorations were up, the cake was ready, and Amanda was beaming with excitement. Then my parents arrived. Late, of course. My father strolled in with his usual air of self-importance, my mother trailing behind. He carried no gift bag, no neatly wrapped box, just a rough, slightly broken branch in his hand. A stick. Amanda looked at it, puzzled. "What's that?" My father held it out to her. "Your birthday present," he announced with a grin. The room fell silent for a second, then a few awkward chuckles rippled through the guests. My sister, Laura, and her husband exchanged amused glances. My mother let out a soft, forced laugh. Amanda hesitated before taking it, holding it as if it might bite. I don't understand." My father clapped his hands. "Expensive presents are only for other grandchildren." And then he laughed. A deep, heartfelt laugh, as if he had just told the best joke of his life. Laura giggled. Her husband grinned. Even some of our more oblivious guests let out polite chuckles, not realizing what was actually happening. Amanda's face crumpled. She turned to me and Emily, her voice small. "Why is Grandpa saying that?" Emily pulled her close and rubbed her back. I could see her jaw clenching, the way it always did when she was holding back. I wasn't holding back. I turned to my father, my voice low. "What the hell's wrong with you?" He shrugged, completely unconcerned. "You don't deserve my respect, William. You know that. Why should I spend money on your daughter?" The laughter died instantly. A few people shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had laughed at something that wasn't a joke. I saw red. The past years of his petty games, his favoritism, his endless manipulation, it all came crashing down on me at that moment. But instead of exploding, I did something else. I smiled. And then I got up, walked across the room, and did something that made my father's face fall for the first time that night. I picked up a knife. For a second, the room held its breath. Not in a violent way, I wasn't about to do anything crazy, but in a way that made it clear that something was about to happen. I turned to the cake that Amanda had been so excited about, and carefully cut 2 perfect slices. One for her. One for Emily. Then I turned to my father. "You are no longer welcome here," I said. Silence. Not the awkward kind. Not the uncomfortable kind. A deep, unsettling silence that settled into the walls, the kind that made everyone realize something had changed, permanently. For 30 minutes, no one spoke. Not my father. Not my mother. Not my sister. Not a single guest. And then, just when he thought he still had the upper hand, I decided to end this once and for all. For 30 minutes, nobody said a word. My father sat with his arms crossed, his grin slowly fading as he realized that no one was rushing to his defense. My mother remained silent, staring down at her lap. Laura avoided eye contact. The guests shifted uncomfortably, suddenly unsure of whose side they should be on. Amanda sat next to Emily, picking at her cake with small, shaky bites. She wasn't crying anymore, but she wasn't smiling either. That broke me more than anything. Finally, my father sat back and scoffed. "Are you serious, William? Over a joke?" I kept my voice calm. "You humiliated my daughter on her birthday. In front of everyone. It wasn't a joke." He rolled his eyes. "Oh, please. She's 10. She'll forget it in a week." Amanda looked up. "No, she won't." His face twitched. For a second, just a second, I saw something in his eyes, something like doubt. But then it was gone. "Jesus," he muttered. "This family has gone soft." That was the last straw. I stood up. "Get out." He let out a sharp laugh. You're kicking me out? Your own father? Because I didn't spend money on your brat? Emily stood up too. Yes. Leave. Now the tension was unbearable. My mother finally raised her head and looked between us, her lips pressed together. She looked like she was going to say something, but she didn't. Laura scoffed. Oh, come on. Dad was just Dash. I cut her off. You think that's okay? That he treats Amanda like garbage while your kids get everything? She shrugged. Maybe if you weren't so Dash. I didn't let her finish. You know what? I'm done pretending. Let's just come clean. Dad never respected me. That's okay. He's always favored you and your children. Fine. But I'm done letting Amanda feel like she's less than. It stops today. My father shook his head and pushed his chair back. Unbelievable. The victim complex on you. I took a step closer. Victim complex? You walked into my daughter's birthday party and gave her a goddamn cane while laughing about how you only buy presents for Laura's kids. That's not a joke. That's you being a selfish, bitter old man. For the first time, he had no answer. He just stood there, jaw set, fists clenched. I turned to my mother. And you? Are you just going to sit there and let him do this? She hesitated. And then, in a quieter voice than I expected, she said, I didn't know he was going to do that. That was the moment everything shifted again. My father turned to her, his eyes narrowing. Excuse me? She cleared her throat and straightened in her seat. I knew he preferred Laura's children, but I didn't know it would go this far. My father stared at her, as if she had just spoken another language. Oh, don't start. But she wasn't finished. William's right. It wasn't a joke. It was cruel. Laura's mouth dropped open. Mom? She sighed and stood slowly. We should go. My father laughed again, but this time it was hollow. You're actually on his side? She didn't say yes. But she didn't say no either. She just picked up her purse, avoiding his gaze. For the first time in my life, I saw my father speechless. And that was only the beginning. I didn't give my father time to argue. Both of you. Get out. Now. My mother didn't resist. She gave Amanda one last look, something almost apologetic, then turned and headed for the door. My father, on the other hand, lingered, looking around the room as if expecting someone to back him up. When no one did, his face twisted in disgust. You're a joke, William. He spat. A weak little. Out, I said again, my voice cold. He let out a dry laugh and shook his head. Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize you can't cut me out of your life. I opened the door for him without saying another word. My mother stepped out first. He followed, but just before he crossed the threshold, he turned one last time and looked at Laura. Are you coming? Laura hesitated. She looked at me, then at my wife, then at Amanda, who was still clutching the stupid cane as if she didn't know what to do with it. Then she sighed and got up. Yeah, I'm coming. Of course she was. She grabbed her husband's arm and the two of them followed my parents out. The door closed behind them. For a few seconds, no one moved. The guests were frozen, waiting for some kind of cue as to what to do. But there was nothing to say. Nothing to do. Then Amanda broke down. She burst into tears and buried her face in Emily's stomach. Emily knelt down, whispered softly, and rubbed her back. I crouched down beside her and put a hand on Amanda's shoulder. Honey, I said gently. It's okay. She sobbed. Why does Grandpa hate me? Emily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I clenched my fists, forcing my voice to remain calm. He doesn't hate you. He doesn't know how to be a good person. She sniffled. But he's nice to Laura's kids. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I know, honey. And it's not fair. But listen to me, we love you more than anything. You don't need him to be happy. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. But my party is ruined. And that part hurt the most. Because she was right. The air in the room was heavy. No one was laughing, no one was celebrating. Guests shifted awkwardly, some muttering quick excuses to leave. The birthday party that was supposed to be perfect had turned into a disaster. Emily and I did our best to lighten the mood, but the damage was done. The candles had already melted. The presents felt meaningless. Amanda tried to smile, tried to pretend she was okay, but she wasn't. And that was when I made a decision. This wasn't over. I wasn't going to let my father walk away from this thinking he had won. Thinking he could humiliate my daughter and get away with it. No. I was going to make him regret it. He wanted to play cruel games? Fine. I'd play too. But I'd play smarter. Revenge was coming. And he wouldn't see it until it was too late. My father has always loved control. He built his life around it, controlling my mother, controlling my sister, and most of all, trying to control me. But there was one thing he could never control, no matter how hard he tried. My business. I started it from nothing. Long hours, endless sacrifices, pushing through every setback. And when it finally took off, my father had the nerve to pretend he had anything to do with it. He never invested a dime. Never gave advice. Never lifted a finger to help. But the moment it became successful, suddenly he was walking around like he was a co-founder. He introduced me to people as if I worked under him. He called it our business, even though he had nothing to do with it. And the worst part? I let it slide for years. Because deep down, I thought if I made him feel important, maybe he'd finally respect me. That was a mistake. After Amanda's birthday, I stopped letting things slide. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Cut him out completely, I said. My lawyer was silent for a second. Are you sure? Your father isn't technically listed anywhere, but he's acting as a... He's nothing. Make it official. And just like that, I closed the door on him forever. He didn't notice at first. He was too busy sulking, probably expecting me to come crawling back with an apology. But when his usual calls to my office went unanswered, and when his name was removed from everything he pretended to be a part of, he finally began to realize something was wrong. Then the storm hit. He showed up at my office unannounced, brushing past my assistant as if he owned the place. William, he barked. What the hell's going on? I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. I don't know what you're talking about. His face was already red. I called the bank today. They won't give me any information. I called your board of directors. Suddenly I'm not welcome at their meetings. What the hell are you playing at? I shrugged. You said I didn't deserve your respect. So why should you have any part of my business? His jaw clenched. I built this with you. I laughed. No. I built this. You just like to act like you did. You ungrateful little dash. Careful, I warned. You're in my building. And I don't owe you anything. For the first time in his life, my father looked lost. I could see it in his eyes. He had spent years pretending to be a king, walking around with his chest out, talking about his company, his influence. And now it was gone. He had nothing. And the best part? He had done it to himself. He stepped closer, trying to regain control. You really think you can just cut me out? I already have. His breathing was heavy. He looked at me as if he wanted to hit me, yell at me, something. But there was nothing he could do. No leverage. No power. I could practically see his ego crumbling. You'll regret this, he said finally, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. You need me. I smiled. No, Dad. I never did. And then I called security. Security didn't even have to touch him. As soon as I pressed the button on my desk, two tall, broad-shouldered men came into my office. My father took one look at them and realized how pathetic he must have looked, an old man throwing a tantrum in a place where he had no power. Are you serious? He hissed. I tilted my head. You think you can come in here and make demands? This isn't your house. This isn't your business. You have no authority here, and you never did. He scoffed, shaking his head, but I could see his hands clenched at his sides. He was unraveling. You think you're untouchable, he muttered, more to himself than to me. But let me remind you, son, I'm still your father. You don't get to erase me just because you throw a tantrum. I smiled. I already did. And believe me, Dad, it feels great. The guard stepped forward, and for a second I thought he was going to fight back. His fists clenched, his chest puffed out like he was about to throw a punch. But then something unexpected happened. The office door opened again, and my mother walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. I hadn't spoken to her since the party, and I certainly hadn't invited her. But there she was, standing in the doorway, looking between me and my father with a look on her face I couldn't quite place. Howard, she said quietly, addressing my father. Come with me. His eyes flickered to hers, his anger momentarily turning to confusion. What are you doing here? She took a breath, then looked at me. William, can we talk? Alone? I hesitated, but then nodded to the guards. Give us the room. They stepped out, closing the door behind them. Now it was just the three of us. Mom, whatever you're about to say. I started, but she held up a hand. I know you're angry, she said. And I don't blame you. What your father did was wrong. I should have stopped him a long time ago. My father's head snapped toward her. Barbara, what the hell? She ignored him. But you have to listen to me. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. She hesitated, then said something I never expected. I want out. I blinked. Out of what? She swallowed hard. This. Him. The life I've been trapped in for decades. My father's face strained of color. What are you talking about? She turned to him, and for the first time in my life, I saw pity in her eyes. Howard, I've spent my whole life keeping quiet. Watching you play favorites. Watching you tear William down because you can't stand that he's better than you. His mouth opened, but no words came out. She turned back to me. I should have left a long time ago. But I was afraid. Of losing the house. Of losing security. Of starting over. She took a deep breath. But I'm not afraid anymore. I stared at her, trying to process what she said. You're divorcing him? I asked slowly. She nodded. If you help me. My father pounded his fist on my desk. Are you out of your mind? She flinched, but didn't back down. No, Howard. I think I'm finally sane. He turned to me, his face contorted with pure rage. This is your fault. He seethed. You're poisoning her against me. I leaned back in my chair, my arms still crossed. No, Dad. You did that all by yourself. For the first time in his life, my father looked truly powerless. And it was beautiful. My father was shaking. His face, red with rage only moments before, had faded to an unhealthy pallor. He looked between my mother and me as if he couldn't believe what was happening. You're serious, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You're really leaving me? My mother nodded, her hands at her sides. Yes, Howard. I am. His breathing was uneven now. You're making a mistake. You think he will take care of you? You think William will save you? He let out a bitter laugh. Newsflash, Barbara, you walk out on me, you get nothing. I tilted my head. Are you sure about that? He scoffed. What the hell does that mean? I leaned forward and tapped my fingers on the desk. You never took care of the finances, Dad. You never bothered. Mom did. You just barked orders and assumed everything was under your control. His eyes darted to her. Barbara? She looked at me, then back at him. Then she dropped the bombshell. I've already spoken to the lawyers. Everything in my name is mine. Half the house. Half the savings. And considering how much I've endured over the years, I'm going after more. My father's mouth opened, but no words came out. I smiled. Oh, and since you like to pretend that my business was your business, I had my legal team do some digging. Turns out you took out loans in your name, assuming I'd cover them with company funds. His breath caught. You. Guess what happens when those loans don't get paid? I continued. The bank doesn't come for me. They come for you. He stared at me, finally realizing how low he had sunk. You're lying, he muttered. I sat back and crossed my arms. Find out for yourself. He turned to my mother. Barbara, you can't do this to me. She looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I saw no fear in her eyes. No hesitation. Just clarity. You did this to yourself, Howard. He stumbled back a step, gripping the edge of the desk as if he needed it to stay standing. You ungrateful dash. I cut him off. No, Dad. That's who you are. You were given a family, and instead of loving us, you played favorites. You had a son who built something incredible, and instead of being proud, you tried to take credit. You had a wife who stood by you for years, and instead of appreciating her, you treated her like she was disposable. I shook my head. You lost everything, Dad. And you have no one to blame but yourself. The room fell silent. For the first time, my father had nothing to say. No insults. No manipulations. No way to spin the situation to his advantage. He had truly lost. A chime from my phone broke the silence. I looked down at the screen. A text from Emily. Amanda's feeling better. We took her out for ice cream. She's smiling again. I exhaled, the tension leaving my body. That was all that mattered. Amanda was happy. Safe. Untouched by my father's poison. I looked back at him. You should go. He stared at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe regret. Maybe hatred. Maybe just the weight of realizing he had finally run out of people to manipulate. He turned and walked out. My mother stayed a moment longer, looking at me with something like gratitude. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For reminding me that I still have a choice. Then she left too. And just like that, my father was out of my life. I won't lie and say it didn't feel good. It did. It felt right. I didn't take revenge for revenge's sake, I did it to protect my daughter. To make sure she never had to feel like she was less than. That she would never have to go through another birthday feeling unloved. And as I walked out of my office to go home to my family, I knew one thing for sure. My father would never hurt us again.